Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 303 of the Home Recording Show podcast. I am John Tidey.
And I'm Ryan Canestro.
And we've improved our recording setup a little bit.
Only a little bit.
Just a tad. You guys probably saw that picture we shared on Facebook. This is all, I want to say it's all kind of new to us, but we've done the show remotely forever, but never with video. And so we're trying to experiment with a couple different options for making good quality video for you guys. And we're going to try really hard to remember to describe what we're seeing. If it's something visual on my screen, dropped the ball a little bit on the last episode. So sorry about that. But we had a good response to the YouTube video on that one as well.
And the first time John had to see my face doing the show, it freaked him out.
Sure. But yeah, I mean, that whole thing, like just the first time we did a video call, like, it was just weird.
Because we've done the show, we did it for 5 years consistently, every weekend, and we never saw each other's faces. Like, we saw pictures of each other, but we never interacted face to face, and we still haven't even met each other. So there's that.
Yeah, we never really did video calls because, like, just the latency or it was just choppy. And I don't know, maybe I didn't have a webcam back then.
It was early Skype too, and I don't think I had a webcam either.
I didn't buy a webcam until last year, but I had a cam link for the last couple of years.
And moving forward, I just bought a camera, so we're going to actually have good video on my end. I noticed at the beginning of this video, my face was just red, and then it shifted back to a natural skin tone. So webcam, so that's going away. I at least put up a little black backdrop this time, and we did a little lighting to get it so it feels like I'm not in a cave. But that's also going to change. I have background. I'm going to redo all the lighting. So it's all happening. So we're going to get to a place where my video looks at least comparable to John's. But yeah, moving forward, we're actually going to start doing this for real.
Yeah, it's fun. And something that you guys can do to help us get to that point and to keep doing this on a consistent basis and everything is our Buy Me a Coffee link. You'll find that on our website. Hit the Buy Me a Coffee link. It's basically a $5 donation. But if you do that, you'll get your name in the show. In the video at the end, there's going to be a list of everyone that's ever donated, since season 3 started. So we got 4 people up there now. And thank you guys so much.
And I will put every penny of that towards just the show. Nothing but making this better.
This episode is, what do you actually need for a home studio? And we've got a brief list here. We've got a lot of experience and a lot of bias probably setting up home studios. Because when we started, it was difficult, and there was the option of doing it with standalone recorders or computer-based, and there was pros and cons of both. And now it's like computer-based is really the only option. But there are some devices that combine multiple functions. Well, I don't want to get too far into it without getting through the list first, but...
And I did both. And the hardware-based is not fun. Unless you're going to tape and you get the benefit of tape and the sound of tape, cool. But I did ADAT for a while, and I was trying to do computer-based recording at that time, but there were no great multi-track options unless you got into several thousands of dollars. So ADAT was the option. But I'm so happy to be in computer-based recording world for just the editing capabilities alone.
Yeah, so I'm going to say the first thing that you need for a home studio, and let's define a home studio as something that you can use to record kind of professional level audio of yourself and get paid by some other person and not be embarrassed about the audio quality or anything about that. It's good enough for paid work. And so we're going to say you need a computer. The easiest recommendation, some sort of Mac, current Mac, super easy. They all work really well for audio
software. Like my 2011 MacBook Pro that I've been using this whole time?
Yeah, for sure.
It's still
that
going.
One still works. The M1 Mac Mini is what I use. It's, what is it, $600, $700.
That's the one I'm looking at right now.
And it's, just a super easy to recommend, easy to connect, and it works great with Reaper. I don't really care what software you use. I feel like you don't appreciate Reaper until you've used all the others. invested thousands of dollars in other software. But yeah, Reaper is where I'd like people to end up. And if you do end up there, I'm happy to help you learn that.
John got me there.
Eventually.
And I love it. And just being able to customize things alone is worth the price of admission. All the DAWs do all the same thing. They record stuff, they process stuff. They basically do. You just have to learn a different thing to switch from one to the next. How does this one work? How does that one work? But in Reaper, once you get there, if you want to do anything beyond the basics, it is the best one to work with that I've ever seen. Combining macros and custom workflows, huge time savers.
These days, you're very often not just doing audio. You're often dabbling into video because video is so important for promoting your music or promoting your studio or anything. And without Reaper, because it can edit video as well, I would have given up on video production a long time ago. Just dealing with the trouble of Adobe products and the other options. It's just, yeah.
And if you just have to do basic video editing, it's amazing because most of the people watching this show are going to be audio first, video second, but video is important now. And if you get your super clean audio and you can just edit together the video on top of it, which Reaper lets you do.
Yep. So, so like this show is recorded and edited with Reaper. Or the video's not recorded with Reaper, but using free software, using OBS, and then we edit it in Reaper. And all my YouTube channel content is edited in Reaper, and it's been amazing for that.
And OBS is amazing too. We should at least let people know that software is phenomenal. It's open source software. It's truly amazing. It's as good as any of the proprietary software out there, and it's free to use for anybody. Free to change, free to edit.
Definitely complicated. I've more trouble with OBS than Reaper most days, but yeah, it's excellent software.
And that's all video software. Once you get into video, if you think you're going to have a smooth ride, no matter what you get, you are wrong.
Going back to the computer thing, we definitely recommended Macs, but I use both. I use Windows 10. I have a custom Windows 10 computer. I use that for most of 2020, and I did like it. I didn't really have issues with recording audio or video or editing videos on that system. It's just when the opportunity or when I had enough money to upgrade, the pull to get a Mac Mini, the new M1 Mac Minis was like too much to avoid. And even though it's a little less powerful in some aspects, don't regret it at all. And I definitely prefer it.
I wonder how long it's going to be until that gets native support for things like Reaper and a lot of third party, because it's all running in emulation currently.
Yeah, the transition has been slow for a lot of the stuff.
Because once that's native, it's going to be like a flamethrower. It's going to be so powerful.
Yeah, I've got some native apps that work super great and some that are absolute pigs when it comes to using resources. I was rendering video, the last episode, actually. I was rendering the video and I had episode 301 and 302 open in Reaper. And I noticed that my whole computer was running a little bit slow. And I checked the activity monitor is using 29 gigs of RAM. And it's only an 8 gig RAM machine. So it was a little slow. But still Reaper exports at like 6x for video, which is so nice. So beside the computer, you need an audio interface. An audio interface is your main hub. It has all of your connections to the computer, so from the digital world and the analog world. So it has microphone inputs, it has guitar inputs, it has speaker connections, headphone connections. In most cases, it also has analog knobs that you can turn, so you always know exactly what each thing does. So if you plug into input 1, there's a knob for input 1 that turns it up or down. For your headphone volume, there's usually a knob for that. And for the monitor speakers, you have a knob for that. And it's all just, each function is dedicated there. There are definitely interfaces that are very minimal, and they'll have like one knob and a couple different buttons to switch between the different functions. I'm not a huge fan of that, but they work.
Yeah, modern interfaces are basically combining several things you used to have to buy separate. You have microphone preamps, you have your studio controller, you have your headphone amps, you have all of that built into one thing. So it's very much simplified over, when you get into a bigger setup, you're going to separate out all of these things. And then it gets crazy. But
yeah,
modern interfaces simplify all of that.
It used to be that you would get a PCI card. So this circuit board that you plug into your computer, and that would have these breakout cables with MIDI connections or 1/8-inch, 1/4-inch RCA connections. And then you would usually go into a mixer, and then the mixer would have your mic preamps in it. And then also it would be your kind of central monitor controller and headphone output. These days, mixers are not really necessary. There's some situations where they're great. For your first home studio to, let's say, record podcasts, to record guitars, to record professional voiceover, you don't need a mixer.
Well, there are a couple of great mixers that are audio interfaces now. So you get the benefits of both all in one for relatively inexpensive too, a couple $100.
Yeah, there are some okay ones. They're never quite as good as a dedicated audio interface without the mixer stuff. Because if you want to hit that under $1,000 price point, you got to make a lot of compromises there. And so you usually want to have good preamps and flexible monitoring options. You don't always get that with the stuff that just packs in a ton of features. And in the previous episode, we talked about the Audio Fuse having 1 million features and then still being $800. I think that's kind of the exception, or kind of like the next step in how things are going with audio interfaces, just getting smaller and packing in more features and also improving the audio quality overall.
Yeah, the more checkboxes on the back of the features list means it doesn't do any one of the things great. It just does a lot of things.
When we first got started, when we first did the show, it was very important to have a standalone mic preamp just to get better quality than the audio interface. These days, I don't think it's really necessary.
No.
The audio quality of the built-in preamps is excellent these days. So anything past 2005, let's say, no, 2005 was still the dark ages.
Yeah. Anything past 2010.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But I was going to say 2008 was pretty good. When I had my Profire 2626, that one had pretty good preamps. Definitely better than the Digidesign stuff that was double, triple the price.
Well, I'll do recordings now on a Scarlett, a 2i2, $150 interface that makes air. It is on TV shows. Before, I had the 002 that was a $2,000 interface for Pro Tools.
Pretty much,
and I had to have an ADAT preamp to plug in different preamps to get anything usable, because those preamps were garbage. I mean, it really sounded bad.
Yeah, very kind of dark and
muffled.
We're kind of getting all over the place with things you need and don't need simultaneously. Sorry about that, but like I said, there's a lot of bias that we've had because we had to dig through the trenches. We spent so much money on stuff that sucked to get to where we are now, where things are pretty easy.
Kids these days don't know how good they have it.
Exactly. So audio interface usually connects to your computer these days through USB, Thunderbolt, Firewire. It used to be very important. Now it's not. A USB 1 connection does 2 channels in and out. USB 2 can be up to 30-ish, something like that.
Probably.
Stability, who knows? But for any 2-channel input, that's all good over USB 2.
I just recorded 64 channels of audio over Dante to a USB hard drive that was USB 2, and it recorded 64 channels consistently for 12 hours.
Yeah, I remember even USB 2 was no good for hard drives back in 2006. It was.
So that must have been a controller issue, not a bandwidth problem.
Yeah, just drivers got better, or drives got better for sure. Because no one had SSDs back then.
No,
but now they're pretty affordable. And
but that was a spinning drive too for me.
Yeah. So USB 2 is totally
Usable.
fine in most cases. Yeah, audio doesn't take that much bandwidth just for recording, usually. I'm not going to say that external hard drives are 100% necessary, but having a dedicated drive, whether internal or external, just for doing your recording is important, and then having a backup as well.
Always backups. I can't stress backups enough. I'm building servers now for backups. Hugely important.
Don't record onto your desktop or into your documents folder. Record into a dedicated folder, preferably on a second drive that also has a backup somewhere.
And automatic backups if you can do it, so you don't forget.
For me, I use Backblaze, Time Machine in the past, and that was totally fine. I've done manual backups by just dragging the folders into a second drive.
I do my backups automatically with cron, so it is just command line stuff that happens in the background on a schedule.
Yeah, that's a good way to automate it on a Mac. For example, like my Reaper folder is backed up, zipped first, and then put into my Dropbox folder every night at midnight. So that's like a super easy backup thing that saves me time and time again.
Yeah.
When things get corrupted, or I need to go to a second computer, or I need to share something with someone, just having that backup, not losing my settings due to some error, is amazing.
Yeah, and I have everything go to a network attached storage that I can then VPN to, and then that automatically backs up to an offsite. And then I do a monthly backup, which is an external hard drive that stays disconnected, and that's a monthly.
So let's talk about monitoring. We've got headphones. For studio recording, you want to have closed back headphones. That means that there's no leakage or very minimal leakage out of the headphones when you're recording, so that, playing back tracks, it doesn't come out into the microphones.
And the reason you'd have open back headphones, they sound better. If you're just listening to music, those are the ones you want to buy for just enjoyment. But for tracking, it's closed back.
Yeah. They're definitely less comfortable, but they isolate well, and that will mean less time spent cleaning up your tracks, less time editing. Yeah, and that's kind of the main thing. And the budget for that is kind of like the sky's the limit for headphones. It's like you can get some decent headphones for like $35, but you could also spend $5,000 and you can enjoy them for different things.
I think the sweet spot's just over 100. Like the Sonys I'm wearing now, they're just good. They sound consistent. I know what they sound like. They're not great. I don't love the sound of them, but they're good for day in, day out work.
Yeah. And I am using open back headphones right now.
That's why I was hearing audio all over the place.
And that was a joke. He's not really. These are the Sennheiser HD650. Or like the kind of budget version that drop.com is what they're called now. They used to be called Mass Drop, but they make like a budget kind of slightly cheaper version of it, different accessories sort of thing. But yeah, they're just comfortable, and I can talk and not have to monitor myself because I can just hear myself in the room, which is nice. I actually don't monitor this mic as I'm recording most of the time. Close back for recording, anything that you're working with a microphone with, you're probably going to want to hear it in their headphones in real time. And so you're using good quality headphones, not Bluetooth, not wireless, but wired cable to your audio interface. And then if you're mixing, you have two options. Good quality headphones, like open back headphones. Sennheiser's, AKG makes some nice ones as well. There's a lot of other kind of mastering grade headphones as well. But yeah, typically it's going to be like semi-open or open back headphones for mastering and really mixing any detailed work you want to do where you don't need to worry about bleed, don't need to worry about isolation, blocking out background noise, anything like that.
And I wouldn't normally recommend mixing in headphones, but if you're in an apartment or those kind of situations, you can buy a pair specifically for that. I've got no problem editing dialogue, things like that in headphones where it's more of a reference type situation. But for critical music, I would definitely want to go with monitors in that situation.
So studio monitors are typically a pair of powered speakers, which means that they have matched amplifiers built into them. They take either a XLR cable or a 1/4-inch cable. We haven't talked about cables yet. Those are the two common types of balanced cables used for studio monitors.
There's the key term, balanced cables.
Going from your audio interface to the speakers, they have built-in amplifiers, and the knob on your audio interface only turns down that signal going out to the amplifiers in those speakers. There are a lot better budget studio monitors these days. I'm kind of at a point where I haven't upgraded my monitors in maybe 5 years. I have the Focal CMS50. I don't know if they're even made anymore, but Focal, after I bought these, came out with a budget line that looked great. Even not even hearing them, I would recommend any Focal product because I've been so impressed with these and any other Focals that I've heard.
They're unbelievable. They're probably some of the best monitors I've ever heard.
Before that, I had Yamaha monitors, and they were okay, but they definitely had a certain sound. They didn't always translate well to other people's speakers. The balances were different, or tonally they're different. And I've never liked KRK monitors, never really liked the M Audio monitors.
Focal used to make the drivers for the KRK, so the early KRKs were good, and then they fell off a cliff.
I can't verify that, but I've seen KRKs used in studios quite a while ago. Back when I was starting at Metalworks, most of
that's when they were good.
Their big monitors were KRK, and they'd have those on the consoles. And yeah, they sounded really good. Not that the students had any basis of reference for what good sounding speakers were, but but they all sounded great. And then since then, you don't really see KRKs that often. You'll see Focals, you'll see Barefoot.
I've got a pair of JBLs now that I love. They're the older model that were still the powered ones, but they're fantastic.
Yeah, JBL makes a really great budget studio monitor. I would say that for anyone starting out just with a minimal setup, studio monitors are not a necessity, but you should definitely have some secondary and tertiary ways of monitoring so that you can actually hear what changes when you go to different systems. Studio monitors, the best that you can get, reduces the time you need to spend checking on different monitors. You can just trust them a lot more.
Yep. So yeah, I'd go studio monitor first, good headphones second, and then always use that car mix to see what it sounds like in there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the way that I went. I didn't get open back headphones until after I had these studio monitors. So yeah, but I used semi-open headphones, the AKG K240. I have 2 sets of those that I still feel like I can mix, master, track on those really well. So, but a lot of it's just getting familiar with it, listening to a ton of music on it, figuring out what details you're missing when you switch to different types of headphones and things.
And you can hear a stereo effect so much more in headphones. Even on near-field monitors, when you put the headphones on, you hear the stereo effects way more.
All right, so then how do we actually record things? We need something to record. How do we get the sound in the room into the computer? We need some sort of microphone.
Oh, I know. Yeah, microphones.
Microphones, yeah. You can get a lot done with just a Shure SM58. It's a mic that you can't destroy, no matter how hard you try.
Should be everyone's first mic purchase.
It sounds decent on everything, but it does have a particular sound, and it's not that flexible in the way that it sounds. Like it's one puller pattern. All you can really do is change the position and the gain on it.
It does one thing really well, though.
It's very often recommended that you get a condenser microphone kind of as your first microphone or maybe as your second microphone. The 58 is cheap enough so you can have both. You can have a decent, even $100 condenser microphone these days. A lot of them sound good. Go with a $300 one if you can afford it because you'll know that it's much better. And also a 58, and you can get a lot done with just that. Condenser microphone's going to have a lot more detail when it comes to transient response or like fast, clicky sounds, or it's really going to bring out a lot of detail.
Detail in the highs especially.
Yeah. Then there's large diaphragm and small diaphragm condensers. Typically, a small diaphragm condenser is going to have a higher noise floor, or a self noise is going to be higher than a large diaphragm condenser. And all condensers are going to have more self-noise than dynamic microphones. Dynamic microphones, condenser microphones work on different principles.
That's a wormhole
Is
we
it
don't
important?
need to go down.
I don't think it's necessarily important, but just know that there's a variety of different types of microphones out there. They all sound different. They all kind of have benefits and pros and cons of each type.
And for your 15th microphone, you should definitely get a ribbon microphone. But make sure you get all 14 microphones, condensers, and dynamics first. Well, ribbons are technically dynamic, but I digress.
I tend to trust companies like Shure and AKG and Audio-Technica.
Especially for the mid-range.
These are companies that have been creating studio equipment since the beginning, since before home recording. And I think they've done a really good job of keeping the quality up while also reducing the cost. They usually have decent accessories, and they last a long time. They retain their resale value, which is good. Have you ever sold a microphone? Or you just get more? Always more?
Just more. And like my first good condenser was a Shure KSM 32, and it's a 3/4 inch diaphragm. So it's right in the middle between small and large. And then I bought one more down the road. So I have a pair of those. They still get used constantly. It's been forever now that those mics get constant use, and they're fantastic. So
probably 20 years old now?
Yeah. Easy, yeah.
I think my first was the AT2020. It was probably the first year that those mics were out.
Mm-hmm.
And sold those long ago, but they're not bad.
No, they were a little bright, little sizzly, but they were great on some sources.
Yeah.
I use them for percussion all the time.
Yeah, they're just kind of good, durable, compact condenser mics. They definitely have a different character than the cheap dynamics. I like to say that there's no bad microphones, only like a mismatch of source and microphone, because there's always something that it'll excel at, and sometimes a blend of two microphones on the same source is exactly the kind of character, color, tone, whatever you want to call it, that you need. So along with the microphone, you need a stand and a cable for each one. Or, one good quality stand, one good quality cable, and then have a couple of microphones, but then you're limited to just recording one thing at a time. So just keep that in mind. Those can be little extras that kind of catch you off guard when you're budgeting for this, especially if you want to record drums.
Forget about it.
Right. Okay. So you can buy a kit of microphones for like $400. I think there's a Shure kit, there's a AKG kit. They're decent. Or Audix is another company that makes a big
Heil makes a kit too.
A bundle of mics, but they don't come with stands and they don't come with cables. So you're looking at
or an interface that'll accept that many channels.
For stands, they could be $100 each and up. For cables, that's $20, $30, $50 a piece.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that really increases the price. And if you're just getting started, don't start with trying to record everything simultaneously. Start with 2 tracks. Can you get a great sound with 2 mics into an audio interface? Yes, you can, but it just takes a little bit longer.
Well, and the other thing to think about, if you're a drummer and you're going to record yourself all the time, cool. Maybe that's the way you want to go. But if you're not a drummer, then maybe focus on the thing that you are doing and go to a friend's studio just to record drums when the few times you do. If it's only going to be a couple times a year, rent it. Don't buy it unless you really want to go down that road.
Yeah. So you could spend $300 on a studio as an engineer and maybe get an assistant with it and have the whole day to record. And they're already set up with mic stands, cables, audio interfaces, consoles, everything that you need. If you know the workflow, you know how to get everything set up and getting it sounding good, then you can save a lot of money just, the times you need to record drums, go to a studio. That's what I did. But I wasted a lot of money kind of like building up slowly, buying these different mics and stands and things, thinking that I was going to record full bands someday. And it ended up being a waste.
Yeah. And I did go down the road of buying all of the things and recording all of the drums and did it for years and years and years. And now I just don't at all. But I still have all the things. So if it ever comes up, it's all there. But yeah, I probably could have saved a few bucks on some of that. But I did learn a lot. So I'll take that.
You have to enjoy the process. You have to enjoy
And I did love the process.
But if you just need the results, there's also the option of session drummers. Online session drumming, super easy and affordable these days. So don't forget about that option. And that's pretty much the list. If we're going to go through this piece by piece, a computer plus a dedicated hard drive for recording, one mic, stand and cable, an audio interface, one pair of headphones, probably closed back is your first starting point.
Yep.
It'd be great if you had studio monitors, but if not, open back headphones. The other optional thing would be a MIDI controller. I would say that most people working with audio would benefit from a MIDI controller. If you have no interest in working with music, fine. Don't get a MIDI controller in that case. I would say there's more people that need a MIDI controller than don't need a microphone. Anyone that works solely with MIDI is still going to want to have a microphone to record their own samples. It just opens up so many more possibilities to record your own samples, another income stream possibly.
And let's just take it, back it up for one quick second. When we're talking MIDI controller, we're talking about, it could be a keyboard for instruments to play performances. It could be drum pads that you can bang out beats on. It could be a controller for with faders and mixing, or knobs to twist for editing synths. There's a lot of different things you could do with MIDI.
Yeah. What I had in mind was MIDI controller as in a MIDI keyboard. Drum pad is another option, but you can get very cheap MIDI controllers under $100 these days that'll just get you some other form of MIDI input besides one note at a time in the MIDI editor. Any other way that you can perform things in, or just a more efficient way to work with MIDI through a keyboard, I would recommend it because it's a very cheap add-on. Not 100% necessary for everyone, though. There's a million other things that are common in the studio. Notice we didn't talk about outboard compressors, outboard EQs, plugins even. I consider all those things optional extras. None of those things are going to get you a job, and none of those things are required to work in audio. But I think everything on our list is.
Yeah, I think we focused on how do we do the basic stuff first? And I think a lot of people will get ahead of themselves and start looking at expensive gear, or, compressors, or all the plugins, or all of the toys, or specific instruments before we get into the basics of how do we record this? How do we track this? How do we get it in the computer? How do we get it to where we can just play it back and hear it?
Yeah. There's so much you can do with just the computer, headphones, and an audio interface.
And stock plugins.
Yeah, with stock plugins, with sample libraries. Add in another microphone. You can record your own sounds, record your own instruments, record your voice, record someone else's voice, do a podcast. Yeah, all those things are possible. There's a couple products that kind of merge several devices together. If we're looking at USB mics, they're kind of mixing the microphone and the audio interface, possibly the headphone amplifier as well.
Too many blurred lines. I can't take it.
There are some good USB microphones. I don't have firsthand experience with any of them. I've used some decent ones, but I've used a lot more bad ones.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful about that. And it's also kind of the way that we've laid out this stuff before. It's all modular. You can upgrade any portion of it. You can resell any portion of it. With a USB mic, that's a dead end.
Yeah, and the resale value is not great either.
You can do a lot of work with it because it is combining a lot of things into one. Maybe have one for traveling, but for your home studio, a lot of the USB mics, they do not allow you to add in a second one if you need to record a second sound. None of them have record line inputs usually. It's just whatever mic capsule is in there. Sometimes it has multiple polar patterns. Sometimes it has actual analog gain controls on it, has a headphone output, so sound in and out, but no connections to studio monitors. So there, you're very limited in what you can mix or what professional level you can mix at. Or you're constantly having to switch back to an audio interface, and then when you want to record, back to the USB mic. That's annoying. I've done that as well. The second thing that kind of blurs the lines, and it is actually very similar to a USB mic. That's the field recorder audio interface. Something like the Zoom H5, H4n, things like that. They have built-in microphones. They can be connected to a computer to bring those microphones in with real-time, low latency monitoring, stuff like that. They usually don't have speaker connections. They just have like a 1/8" headphone output. In a pinch, I've used my my handheld field recorder.
Oh, he's going for it.
It's going for it. The Zoom H5. I've recorded videos for YouTube on this that have, probably thousands of views, but it's not a permanent solution. It's a portable solution. And it's a nice extra to have, but I wouldn't base my studio around that. And then there's smartphones. Smartphones can combine a lot of those things as well. If I was paying for studio time and I walked in and everything was connected to an iPhone, turn around and walk away.
Maybe 10 years from now, that'll be the thing, though. We'll see.
Yeah, there is so much you can do, and it's a great creative tool with that, but it comes with a lot of accessories that are obsolete after each version of the iPhone comes out. It's not really an ecosystem you want to base your whole studio around. That's my recommendation. I bought a lot of apps. I don't use very many of those apps past like the first week.
Yeah, I've never tried with the phone stuff.
Adapter hell.
Mm-hmm.
And so much troubleshooting. And yeah, no headphone jack now. So you need some sort of special iOS interface.
Yeah, I'm just not going to do it.
For me, it's not worth the effort. Especially when Mac and Windows work so well for this stuff now. It's gotten much easier. I think that's it for the list. I think that's it for this episode. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this. Check out our Buy Me a Coffee link. Get your name in the end of the show. And maybe I'll actually put the names into the show notes, just as another way to thank everyone.
For sure.
So that's it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. And see you guys next time.